There's no point in denying it. The coupe sector is the fashion end of the car industry. It's the shiny plastic handbag sector. It's the place where beauty is more than skin deep. It's an entire reason for being. And it's a place where we buy cars not for their performance or their ability, but for the way they look. It's a beauty parade. It's a complicated business if you've got around 20 to 25,000 pounds burning a hole in the pocket of your jeans and you're looking for a car. If it's outright performance you want, then you're likely to be looking at something like Subaru's Impreza or the Mitsubishi Evo. If you want sports car thrills, then there are loads of little rear-wheel drive roadsters like the Mazda MX-5, or for a little more, Honda's new S2000. But no, you want a car that's a little more familiar, that echoes perhaps a more sensible choice but still stands out in the company car park. Though not too much, because it doesn't want to upset the bosses. In fact, what you want is a car that your fleet manager is going to let you have. Enter the BMW 3 Series Coupe. The two six-cylinder versions are first to be available, the 323 and the 328. The 318 with 4 cylinders is available in the autumn. The 323 confusingly has a 2.5 litre straight six. The 328 has a 2.8 litre straight six. Classic BMW engine, huge bucket loads of torque and a glorious straight six bellow to accompany it. The driving position is neutral. You feel very much in command with all the controls exactly where they should be. A couple of criticisms, both to do with the steering though. It's very precise and very direct and quite communicative as you'd expect from a BMW. But it could do, I think, with a quicker rack. You do have to put in an awful lot to get a response. And this wheel is enormous. It's like driving a tractor. It could do with something a little bit smaller just to make it feel like it's a little more eager to turn in. At the moment it just follows the corners rounds rather than turns into the bends with vigour. And then it has a whole barrage of technological wizardry to help you avoid throwing the thing at the scenery. There's ASC plus T, ABS, SSC, the list goes on and on. Basically, we're talking traction control, and probably one of the most advanced traction control systems on the market today. Bearing in mind this is a rear-wheel drive car with quite a lot of power, you could get into a little bit of trouble. And to illustrate the point of just how effective that traction control system is, try turning it off, and then being a little over-enthusiastic with the right boot, and you soon find things get a little bit naughty. There is a certain irony to this. The BMW 3 Series Coupe is, in its own right, a very good car, and it doesn't share a single body panel with its sister, the 3 Series Saloon version. And yet, despite the enormous expense and amount of engineering involved in achieving that, it's been designed to look, well, pretty much like the 3 Series Saloon, really. In fact, it's longer, lower and wider than the Saloon and than the previous coupe, and it does have the same steeply raked front and rear windscreens that kind of define it as a coupe shape. But it is all very elegant and very understated. And the same can be said for the interior, where it's equally elegant and understated. And it's equally ironic that a car so often bought by the terminally brash should boast one of the most understated interiors on the market. Slide into the cockpit of any modern BMW, in fact, and you enter an environment designed to make you comfortable with maximum efficiency. Everything in the right place and everything built to last. Mind you, it's never going to win any prizes for being the most interesting place on earth to be. Standard equipment though is pretty good for the 3 Series Coupe. We've got electric seats on everything, air conditioning, safety has been given a high priority with 6 airbags in here, ABS and a sophisticated traction control system, and plenty of goodies in the cabin to play around with as well, including electric windows front and rear. And there's little touches like this that can make all the difference. The 3 Series Coupe accounts for 1/4 of all UK sales in its sector, and that's a level of success you can't argue with. BMW must be getting something right with this car, and apart from the build quality and image, that probably starts with the combination of rear-wheel drive and strong engines. The straight 6 units are a real peach, and the 328 is a very fast peach indeed, strong and tractable with plenty of power right through the rev range. It really is a joy to drive and feed the power through into those rear wheels. You would expect the 3 Series Coupe to be something of a special drive, and it doesn't disappoint.
What we found was that our customers actually ordered lots of options on Coupe, much more so than the Saloon variant. And so what we thought we would do with this one is give them what they actually wanted in the first place, but actually in overall terms, when you take account of the additional specification, the car is actually better value than the old one. We came in '92 with the previous car, and it was the first proper coupe that we had built, and immediately the market expanded. And a lot of competitors have now followed us into that sector. So it's gone from around 16,000 units a year up to 35,000 units a year, and we have 25% of that market. So we've actually, as you rightly say, have a fair stronghold on that market. And the principal reason we believe for that is that this coupe, perhaps even more so than its predecessor, is a very, very good mixture of style, because style is important in coupes. It has to look good, but also it's practical. BMW's philosophy has never been to be wild with its cars. It's an evolutionary styling, just as the saloon is. And I think that's really because we've found a style which our customers like, a family style. And if we were to change that, actually we risk alienating a lot of our customers. The feedback we get from our customers is they like it. It's identifiable as a BMW. It's not an extreme car. You can park it and people are not sort of gawking at it all the time and perhaps making the occupants feel embarrassed. But it's a nice mixture between restrained style and, as I've said before, practicality.
The new 3 Series Coupe will sell, and probably in enormous numbers. But when you think about it, for all the wrong reasons, for its pretty face, for its BMW badge. But if it looked like an old allotment shed and was labelled a lumpy doodah coupe, it would still be worth a look. Its sheer ability would overcome such disadvantages. Sure, it might be in the fashion end of the motor industry, but to use a fashion statement, BMW would tell you that their design is a timeless classic. And you know, I don't think they'd be that far wrong. Of the 3 coupes we've looked at so far, they all lack just one thing: class. Not as cars in themselves, more in the badge department, and that is not a problem for this car. The BMW 330 Ci. Outside every inch the classy coupe, but it's not outside that the story lies. And that story is not just the fact that, yes, it's luxuriously appointed inside, and believe me, it is luxuriously appointed, including a telly, which is very, very nice. The really clever bit here is the gearbox. Now listen carefully, because I don't fully understand this, so as I explain it, we're going to be learning together. It is an ordinary manual gearbox, just as you would get on any other BMW coupe. But it works automatically, sequentially. So what we're not talking about is your traditional automatic box. There are very good reasons for having a manual over that. I'll explain them in a second class if you pay attention. What we've got then is a gear lever in the usual place, and we just slide it into the middle position. There is no clutch pedal. We depress the throttle and we pull away smoothly. Both the clutch itself and the actuation of the gears in the gearbox is carried out electro-hydraulically. That's automatically to you and me, but don't forget, not an automatic box. You've still got your standard manual gearbox. You can then change gear either by waggling the bit about in the middle as you would in a Tiptronic style gearbox, or with these little paddles on the steering wheel. Okay, if you're still with me and still paying attention, one final point, that reason. Well, an automatic gearbox loses a lot of power, apart from making a rather nasty noise and being a bit lurchy and boring. You soak away a lot of the torque through the torque converter, through the actual mechanics of it, compared to a manual gearbox. So what we've got here is the convenience of a manual gearbox with the enormous expense and extra complication of a load of clever gubbins to change gear for you. Yeah, all right, with the 330 Ci we threw budget right out of the window at nearly £28,000. But look what you get for your bucks. 231 bhp from that creamy smooth 3-litre engine. Personally, I'd throw the gearbox out of the window and go for something more ordinary. The performance is simply superb. 6.5 seconds, 0 to 60. But insurance is really gonna smart. Group 17, ouch. Like the Dodo, the woolly mammoth and the friendly bank manager, the sports coupe was seemingly extinct, lost forever with old favourites like the Jaguar E-Type and the Scimitar GTE. And then we, the car-buying public, regained an interest in buying quirky and thirsty but damnably attractive cars, and the sports coupe was reborn. And BMW are right in there with this, the M-Coupe. Now, usually manufacturers develop a roadster from their hard-topped equivalent, a bit like taking the top off a boiled egg, really. But not with the M-Coupe. BMW did it the other way around. In fact, a group of super keen BMW mechanics stayed late and worked after hours to turn an early Z3 prototype into the coupe's lines. Just because it's the work of the class swats, though, doesn't mean it's all square. Oh no, not at all. Before its recent facelift, the Z3 had been accused of being a bit too soft, particularly around the rear, even a bit girly. But certainly not the case with the coupe. The blistered rear arches and big chromed exhaust are pure aggression. Subtle, it ain't. Outrageous, it is. And the SWATs certainly did let their hair down and show us their wilder side when it came to under the bonnet, where you'll find one of the world's finest engines. It's a straight six. It was first seen in BMW's M3 and in the M Roadster. Develops about 321 brake horsepower, which is a lot. It's the same, in fact, as the M3, but with less weight. The M-Coupe has the advantage. You really do climb down into these leather-lined sports seats where you'll find there is electric adjustment fore and aft and for the height, and manual adjustment for the backrest. Now, smaller drivers will have no difficulty at all in finding a nice, comfortable driving position, but those over 6 foot might find it's a bit of a challenge in here in the headroom department. As you'd expect from BMW, the quality of the interior is right up there with the best. Chrome surrounds the gear lever and the dials. You'll find air conditioning and a radio cassette player come as standard. There are those who might say that in a £41,000 car they'd expect to find a compact disc player as standard as well, but I say that's rather missing the point. Let's not get too caught up on all the little bells and whistles here. Because this car is all about the potency of that straight six engine. Unusually for a car manufacturer, BMW make quite a conservative claim for the 0 to 60 time of about 5.7 seconds, whereas in the dry, times of under 5 seconds have been recorded. And if the Autobahn is long enough and your nerves are strong enough, you'll hit 155 miles an hour before the rev limiter cuts in to spoil your fun. Boo. It's the in-gear times that put this car into context. In top gear, 50 to 70 miles an hour takes just 6 seconds. A Lotus Esprit GT3 takes 8.3, and even BMW's own mighty M3 7.9 when completing the same test. All of the controls are precise and fingertip light, and there's plenty of feedback through that enormous steering wheel as you stare ahead down the very long bonnet. And like a thin sheet on an old mattress, you feel every single bump, as you should in a proper sports car. Also, as you should in a proper sports car, it's got incredible brakes. From 60 miles an hour to a standstill comes in about 2.8 seconds, which is extremely impressive. Having said that, there perhaps isn't as much feel through the brakes as there could be. Let's get back to that eggshell business. Think about the difference it makes to the rigidity of the structure when you have the top on or off, and you'll understand why the coupe will outhandle the Roadster. In the dry, those huge Michelin pilots offer enormous amounts of grip. In the wet, however, you do need to be a little more gentle with the right foot. The surface area of rubber on those tyres, combined with 321 brake horsepower, can lead to some rather tail-happy slides. In an age where BMWs have been accused of losing their soul, the M-Coupe points to a rawer type of BMW that we know and love, but also a car that seems almost to have been forgotten. BMW have made themselves a muscle car. In these politically correct times, when even Ferrari and Porsche have started making cars which are well-behaved and easy to drive, the M-Coupe harks back to another age, when sports cars would punish the foolish. BMW say that the M-Coupe is a rival for the Porsche 911, but on paper that would seem unlikely. The Porsche is £25,000 more expensive and these days more refined, giving swifter, though arguably less involving and exciting performance. However, with only 200 of these due to be imported into the UK every year, the M-Coupe may well offer a more exclusive proposition. Maybe the truth is that the direct competition for this car hasn't been made for about 20 years, and the M-Coupe is practically in a class of its own, appealing perhaps to buyers of the old-school 911s who like their performance fast and scary.
Now, the BMW is the latest of our three cars to be launched in the UK. And although it went on sale earlier this year, it's still quite a rare sight on the roads. Now, that could be either that BMW are trying to keep their new 7 Series exclusive, or that the buyers don't like the way it looks. It certainly is a radical look and an obvious breakaway from the lines of the previous 7 Series models. Very aggressive, very angular and very modern. I'm sure the younger executives will love this styling, but as to the old school directors, managers and golf club secretaries, I'm not so sure. And if you wanted any proof that American BMW designer Chris Bangle was obsessed with a kidney grille, you won't see any bigger than this. And those wheels are 19-inch. Understated? Not this car. But then again, I'm not an understated presenter. Maybe we'll get along just fine. Well, this car really is something different from BMW. As you'd expect, it's stylish, refined and very classy indeed. But it's very high-tech too, and it grabs you as soon as you get into the car. In fact, from the moment you hit the start button and everything glides to meet you electronically, it really does take your breath back. It's even got a Formula 1 style steering wheel with 4 paddles underneath with various different controls, including the gear shift. But there's also different gear shifts as well. It's got 3 modes. You can go for regular, automatic, sport or manual. Well, at the centre of this high technology totality is this. It's what BMW call the iDrive, and it's one large knob right in the middle of the console, and it pretty much drives all the electronics. Well, you probably need a PhD to be able to learn it all, and a year off to be able to do it. Having said that, in its defence, you can actually activate some of the functions by voice. There is even a clever little function where you can take notes for 5 minutes and record them. A useful little item for a businessman on the road. The V8 engine is powerful but very smooth indeed, and so is the transmission. And depending on whether you're on the automatic or the sport mode, it doesn't really make a difference to how the actual car handles. And in terms of its handling, it's once again excellent. No fear of roll, even though this is a very big car, it handles superbly. No doubt about it, when it comes to refinement, the BMW is superb. Extremely smooth and quiet, yet with good performance figures. 0 to 60 in under 7.5 seconds is impressive for a car this size, and the fuel consumption is better than many at 26 to the gallon. Something to bear in mind for those mammoth motorway sessions. I'm still not convinced with the central iDrive control though. You need to be on the ball to use it properly, yet surely anything that takes the driver's attention off the road can't be a good thing. For drive and comfort, the BMW really is superb. It's powerful, it's smooth, it's refined, it's everything you'd want from a luxury car, and it's very high-tech. But to be honest, it might be just a little bit too clever for its own good, and those looks, well, they may not be to everyone's tastes.
Und jetzt, Damen und Herren, hier ist der BMW 5 Serie und es ist fantastisch. My bit of German for you. Not too bad, school German, but I can still sprechen ein bisschen Deutsch. Yes, all the hassle of Frankfurt have been worth it to see this, the all-new BMW 5 Series. In its previous incarnation, this won shed loads of awards all around the world. And BMW have filled this with a barrow load of enhancements. It is, I have to say, quite incredible. And it also comes with a very controversial active steering system. But with the Mercedes E-Class hot on its heels, how have they improved this 5 Series to beat the competition from Stuttgart? Well, let's join motoring journalist Ivar Carroll, who's in Baden-Baden just down the road at the international launch.
Now, you may recall a couple of years ago when BMW introduced its new 7 Series, there was something of a public outcry about its styling. Now, this 5 Series looks a little bit like the 7 Series, but thankfully isn't quite as extreme. The real area of controversy with the 7 Series styling was its back end, which many would call ugly. Fortunately, the 5 Series has a much softer back end, and I think it's quite attractive. Now, there's a school of thought that says you've got to keep doing radical things with car styling in order to keep the audience interested, keep the punters coming. Similarly, a lot of people say, well, if the styling ain't broke, why would you want to try and fix it? We're just wondering whether Chris Bangle, chief stylist on this project, has pushed the envelope too far and is doing to car styling what Malcolm McLaren did to pop music in the late 70s. There are some amazing styling details on the new 5. Big wrap-round light clusters, shark's fin antenna on the back here. Come along the side, you see a strange blend of hard straights and soft curves. Come to the front, you see a nose that's very evocative of Chris Bangle's Z4 sports car. And look at the amazing styling of this wrap-round headlamp. It's really quite wacky. It comes all the way around the corner of the car and even incorporates up here a row of amber LED lamps that act as a side marker lamp at night. It's important to spend some time looking at this new 5 Series because the 5 has always been considered a benchmark executive car, and it's gained many awards over the years, including our very own Men & Motors Top 10 award. Now, no one aspect of the old 5 Series styling really stood out, and the whole package was right in all respects, and it was a true driver's car, there's no doubt about that, but there was never anything striking about its appearance. Could it be that with the spectre of the very pretty Mercedes E-Class taking sales away from the 5, BMW felt they had to make a really bold decision about its new executive's looks? And if so, did the company get it right?
First of all, it's a good-looking car, and that will grab people's attention and make people want to take a closer look at it. There's a lot of technology in the car, but not so much it'll put people off. And on paper, I think the diesel looks very strong on performance and fuel economy. So it's threatening to be an all-round class leader.
I think it's got big shoes to fill replacing the E39. I think it'll take a while to replace that car in people's affections. But if BMW hadn't been as brave as they have been, they'd have been criticised for moving backwards and not keeping pace with the competition. So I think all in all, it's a great car.
I think it's quite dynamically styled. I think it'll be a good seller. I think it's a vast improvement in looks on the last model, and it performs very well.
I think it's a quandary car. In so many respects, it's a car that I wanted to criticise when I came out to first drive it, and yet I find myself being in a situation where I can't criticise it too heavily. The chassis dynamics are fantastic. The finish of the car is actually very, very good. Sadly, when you get inside the motor car, it doesn't actually feel as high quality as the original 5 Series, which I think is a little bit sad. I think BMW may struggle to sell it.
Of course, it's easy enough to make a wacky-looking car, and it's been done before. Witness Fiat's Multipla, the Audi A2, even the ill-fated Renault Avantime. But none of those have been volume sellers, or were really intended to be large volume sellers, least of all in the UK. This, however, is going to be a major mainstream car, and we're wondering whether it was safe of BMW to make it look quite so radical. So that's enough about the BMW 5 Series for now. We'll come back to it later. Meanwhile, let's go back to the Frankfurt show.
It's hard to believe that it's 10 years since Mazda first launched the MX-5 and created the rebirth of the Roadster. And as the manufacturers realised that we're suckers for a cute little convertible, it was quickly followed by a succession of gorgeous models for us to choose from. The SLK, Fiat Barchetta, the MGF, and of course, 007's choice, BMW Z3. Now, although the gorgeous Z3 was good enough for James to chase those bad guys in, the motoring world was split. Underpowered, not butch enough, a hairdresser's car, all phrases that were bandied around about it. Well, the doubters can eat their words now, because this is the new Z3 and it looks terrific. Now, it may not seem that long since the previous model hit the roads, but there are new versions due of both the MGF and the SLK, and of course Honda have just launched the S2000. It may make for a few unhappy owners of the current model, but at least it shows that BMW aren't a company to rest on their laurels. At first glance, the changes are very subtle. It's only when you get the two cars side by side that you realise the new version has had a huge testosterone injection. It's been working out and it now has one hell of a rump. It's got a redesigned rear bumper. The boot lid has been redesigned to feature these L-shaped light clusters. But the most noticeable thing are the gorgeous curves on the wheel arches. The whole look is squatter and it's lower. This car now looks just as good from the rear end as it does from that gorgeous bulging bonnet. And it's not only cosmetic changes that have beefed the Z3 up. There are changes to the engines lineup as well. There are now 4 engines in the range. A 2-litre straight 6 replaces the 4-cylinder 1.9, and the entry-level model is a new 1.8 version that costs just under 20 grand. The 2.8 engine now features BMW's double Vanos valve timing, which gives it greater mid-range punch, and the powerful M Roadster remains unchanged and still tops the range. This is the £23,000 2-litre straight 6. Now it shares its engine with the superb 520i and it feels very impressive in the Z3. It also features BMW's latest double Vanos technology. What this means behind the wheel is that the engine feels very torquey right throughout the range. 0 to 60 takes just 9 seconds and it has a top speed of 130 miles an hour. There are, of course, a few important considerations that go towards making a great roadster. Of course, it needs to be rear-wheel drive and front-engined, which this is. It has to have tight, precise steering and fantastic handling, which this has, and it needs to have a great gearbox. And this 5-speed manual version feels just perfect. It's slick, all it takes is a flick of the wrist and you're working your way through the gears. It just makes a fantastic driving experience. There is an option of an automatic box, but why on earth would you want it? Working your way up and down the gears is what makes driving a roadster such fun and so involving. Automatics belong in large cars, and that's where they should stay. Yes, I like this car a lot. Get this 2-litre version out on the open road and I can't think of many experiences that are quite so satisfying. In fact, the ride is so good that I can forgive this Z3 its very uninspiring interior, which is straight out of the BMW Compact. The changes in here are very subtle, unfortunately. There's a colour-coded panel in the middle, some nice new silver trim on the dials, but the steering wheel still doesn't adjust, which is something that you want in a car like this. And the control panel for the electric hood has also been moved. It's now just at the back here. This 650 quid electric option means that you don't even need to get out of the car to put your top on anymore. It is a very nice luxury, but the standard hood is so easy to operate that it really is a luxury. Once the hood's up, you'll see that it now has an interior lining, which is very welcome. It'll help to keep out the cold on those nasty winter mornings, and it will also make the ride quieter. Although one noise that it doesn't stifle, I'm happy to say, is the wonderful tune that's now played out of the twin exhaust pipes. And now it's time for the crunch, because this is my car. I love the old Z3 so much that I bought the 1.9 version. So would I swap this for the 2-litre version that now replaces it?
This is Paul. He owns and runs an IT consultancy and lives in the glorious countryside around Charlesworth. He's a very lucky man. He's looking for a new toy car, and we reckon we can help him find one. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks for being our car buyer. Now, a man looking for a toy car and not afraid to admit it.
Yes,
You have
definitely.
no shame about this. This is
None
for
at
high
all.
days and holidays.
One has to enjoy oneself.
Well, one does indeed. Now, you already have a toy car.
Yes, I do, yes. An XJS
Right.
Jaguar. Quite old, but
This is another
classic.
one. This is something a bit special in the garage to scoot off to France in.
Well, I've had that 8 years now, so I think it's time to have a change.
New toys.
Yeah,
You are
and a bit
man.
more
You are a
reliable.
man after my own heart. Paul, we're going to get on. OK, we've got 3 absolute beauties here, and this is a
Right.
dream assignment for us because they're all lovely cars. First up, Corvette.
Yep.
5.7 litre V8 classic piece of Americana, well within your budget. What
Yeah.
do you reckon?
Seems very nice.
It's very big.
Very comfortable. That's
Very
the thing.
red.
The only thing about this is the left-hand drive.
OK.
But the
well,
power delivery is superb and it sounds gorgeous.
Well, we'll see how you get on with it. We'll
Right.
see how you get on. I don't know. I think you might find the left-hand drive isn't such a problem when you've sampled that grunt.
Right.
Well, talking about grunt, our next car has got it too. Let's go and have a look.
Okay.
So from a classic piece of Americana to a real true Brit, TVR Cerbera. Big, bad, mean. What do you think of it?
Beautiful car. This is the V8, I understand, with the 4.5 litre engine, 350 brake horsepower. Sounds really nice.
Yeah, nothing.
It looks the part.
Now, I think, in an odd sort of way, this is as close as you can get to your Jag. Do you know what I mean? In that it's long and low and slightly sinister.
You've got yeah, I can see what you mean. It is about the same length. It's
Yeah.
about as low.
I mean, completely different in other ways, as you say. It's not made of metal and it's a newer car, but somehow it just reminds me of it.
It could bias me a little.
It's a bad boy car, you see. I think we're
it's a
learning more
beautiful
about
car. It's a beautiful car.
It is a stunning thing. Well, we'll find out what you think of the drive of that. But first, we've got our third car to meet, and it's a bit of a contrast.
Smashing.
And it is from Germany, a BMW Z3 M. Are you familiar with them?
Yes, I'm familiar with the brand. I've never driven one. I've driven the 1.9,
Right.
which was a bit tame, to be honest.
You're not smiling
So-
much when you see this, right? Well, look, it's a completely different car to the
Right.
1.9. Honest, well, you wouldn't bung you in an ordinary Z3 compared to these two.
Right.
Really.
Well, it does promise astonishing power, yes, I must
yeah,
admit.
and when they M it up, I mean, it's more than just a few tweaks. It's pretty significant changes. Okay, well, you're going to find out for yourself because I've got in my pocket the keys, if I can get these. Now, I should tell you, these are the keys to
Thank
a
you.
brand new car.
Right.
There's a reason for this. We did have a used version, which you would get within your budget, but we broke it really badly. Sorry. So we're going to use this brand new one, courtesy of BMW, but it will at least give you a flavour of the car, yeah?
I won't complain.
Right, let's give it a go. Well, this is our first car, the
Yep.
BMW Z3 M. Now, you know the score, we get a drive. Admittedly, it's probably not as long with the car as you'd really like, and you don't get to
True.
really put it through its paces, but you have a go.
Yes.
Immediate impressions, what do you think of it?
It's very tall. I think I mentioned to you that I've driven the 1.9 before,
Yes.
so this is certainly a step ahead.
An important part of all of this as we're looking at these cars, we know you're a sensible, mature, responsible businessman,
Yes.
but you are buying a toy here.
Yes.
It's got to look right, hasn't it? Let's be honest. Posing is part of this. What about the image of this thing?
I think it says very sensible. It relies on people knowing it's an M, I think,
Yeah.
and that would be a concern. It's pretty obvious at the back, I think. 4 tailpipes, looks really well. I suppose it's discreet more than anything. I would not have bought one on the basis of the 1.9, so I'm quite pleasantly surprised by this.
Oh, good. Well, it's probably been worth it having it in the mix today, just for that, just to make you look differently to the car that perhaps you'd have written off without thinking about. On the plus side, again, with this is because you occasionally like to romp off down to the south of France, don't you? You and your wife together.
Yes.
Reliability-wise, not a problem.
Well, that's it, of course. It's outstanding liability. BMW, you just don't question it, do you?
Sure about this colour, personally.
No. Man, you never know. It could have been yellow.
It could have been yellow, could have been bright yellow. Well, Paul's test drive in our first car is nearly over, and whilst he enjoys the last few moments, Ian Royal has got more information on the car.
So, Paul, we've picked out for you today a fine piece of Germanic engineering built by quality craftsmen in the south of Germany, in Munich, by BMW. It's the Z3 M Roadster, except that it isn't built by Germans. It's built by the good old boys in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Yes, it surprises people that this car isn't built in Germany. And I was lucky enough a few years ago to go on a trip to the factory where they build the Z3s. Now, at the time, we'd only seen the 1.9 and the 2.8. There were rumours that there was an M version on the way, but we hadn't seen it until we wandered around the factory. And there was one lurking in the corner. Marvellous. So what do you get on this car? You get a straight-six engine, 321 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 in just over 5 seconds, a top speed of 155 miles an hour. It's loaded with just about everything you would want, including an electric hood for when the sun finally shines. And what about prices? 40 grand new, but if you can put up with a pastel yellow one like this, 25,000. The Z3 M uses BMW's renowned straight-six engine, 3.2, 321 brake horsepower with lots of tweaking from BMW's motorsport division.
Cars tend to fit neatly into their own nice little categories. You know the kind of thing. Compact city cars, sensible saloons, ravishing little roadsters. A car to suit the kind of person you are and the type of life you lead. And that being the case, it stands to reason if you're a high-powered executive city type, you drive a large luxury saloon. But what if, when the weekend comes, you fancy getting to grips with nature and sampling a taste of the great outdoors? What, you? Well, I know it's not usually my style, but if I had the kind of vehicle that offered me the opportunity to do both, I might just try it. Impossible. What kind of car can offer superb on-road performance and luxury and have the capabilities to go off-road? Well, actually, this one can. The BMW X5. So, what's an X5? Well, the name gives it away. Think about it. The 5 from BMW Super Saloon, the 5 Series, and the X from Cross Country. Put the two together and hey presto. A car to pose around town in, a car that lets you spot that parking space outside Harvey Nicks before anybody else. Or, if you prefer, a car that can cope with the rough stuff and loves nothing better than thrashing its way through a nice bit of mud. Now, the market for off-roaders just keeps on growing. A few years ago, you could basically have a Land Rover or a Jeep. But now all the manufacturers want a 4x4 of their very own. Even Mercedes have the M-Class, for goodness sake, and BMW certainly don't want to be left out of the game. But the holy grail for manufacturers has been to design what has so far been a very elusive creature. A vehicle that has the looks of a 4x4 but offers the performance of a top-class car. After all, these kind of vehicles are bought by buyers who want to look down on their neighbours and not by farmers who want to cross their fields. They love the looks, but they want the performance, and according to BMW, with the X5, you can have both. Whatever name they may give it, I reckon it looks like an estate on stilts, which maybe doesn't sound very flattering because it is actually a rather handsome and refined creature. The wheel arches have a very subtle flare and they smoothly merge into the gentle curves of the body. And just to remind you, and of course the neighbours, about the off-road bit, you get beefed up bumpers, neat fog lamps, discreet running boards, nice fat tyres and some extra ground clearance. The interior, as you'd expect from a BMW, is extremely civilised. The instrument panel doesn't favour the driver, so that one's passenger can take care of the stereo, the air conditioning and that satellite navigation thing. Everything is superbly positioned and of course it's all superb quality. And there are no complaints about the driving position either. In fact, these seats are more comfortable than the sofa in my living room. There's plenty of room for the driver, for the passengers, and for the most important bit of all, the shopping. Out on the road, well, it might be a large, powerful vehicle, but it's surprisingly easy to drive. The extra height means you get a great view of everything around you, but it doesn't come with any of the rock and roll that you normally associate with off-roaders. And the performance from that V8 engine also reflects that. 0 to 60 takes just 7.5 seconds, and it easily cruises to a top speed of 128 miles per hour. The steering really does feel very direct and it responds without any fuss or any bother. The 5-speed automatic gearbox does all the work for you. And when you add to that a very, very comfortable ride, you'll find it impossible to believe that you aren't in a top-class saloon. And if that's not enough for you, then there's a sport chassis available too, if you feel the need for a marginal improvement in handling for a slight reduction in comfort. But the best thing is you get fantastic fat tyres and even bigger alloy wheels, which will cause such a stir down the King's Road. It probably won't surprise you to discover that 95% of people who own off-roaders never take them off-road. Let's be serious. When the X5 goes on sale at the end of the year, it's going to cost around £47,000. If you'd spent that much money, would you want it to get bumped and bashed and covered in mud? I don't think so. Well, the good thing is, though, that this X5 isn't mine. And remember, I'm rather keen on getting to grips with nature. Off-road, the X5 proves its worth. The permanent four-wheel drive system directs most of the power to the rear wheels, so lack of grip and wheel spin is reduced to a minimum. Of course, the serious side to all this technology is that ultimately it makes for much safer driving, particularly on those dreadful winter mornings, which is probably why you find so many of this type of vehicle taking a rather precious cargo to the school gates. Now, because of BMW's connection with Land Rover, it will be no surprise to you to discover that quite a few of their gadgets and gizmos are on the X5. I'm talking about things like hill descent control. Now, this system, rather unsurprisingly, controls the engine's speed when you're on a very steep slope. It allows it to creep down at a steady 6 miles per hour. All you do is flick a switch just down here. You let the engine do the work for you. You don't panic. You don't even need to use your feet. The only limiting factor is the 180mm ground clearance and the compromise on road tyres. But hey, you can't have everything now, can you? Oh no, look how dirty it is. Why would you want to do that? You see, what buyers want is a vehicle that looks the part and has the off-road capabilities. Heaven forbid we should actually want to try it. Well, you can speak for yourself, because some of us will relish the challenge of discovering what the X5 is really capable of. You should try it sometime. Oh well, that's the beauty of it, I suppose. Whether you're looking for on-road performance or you want to have fun on an off-road course, then the X5 will suit you down to the ground.
Well, you couldn't have missed last year's Saloon of the Year, really. I think the 5 Series BMW, which was unveiled in 1996, arguably my car of the year, had gone one better. After the 5 Series Saloon, they've launched the touring version. They don't call this an estate, because estate cars are those grubby things for taking rubbish down to the municipal tip-in. A BMW 5 Series estate is called the 5 Series Touring. You don't put rubbish in the back, you put your golf clubs in the back, or occasionally you might put a little bit of shopping in the back when you go to one of those upmarket supermarkets. Now, it's interesting design. Of course, it's got the conventional boot release so that you can just lift it like that, but in case you've just got a couple of carrier bags and you need to plonk them in the back, probably Harrods bags actually, just a little flick of that switch and in they go. You've got here a cover to hide any valuables you've got in the boot. You've also got beneath the floor a lockable compartment, which means you can put some small valuables sort of in with the spare wheel, and in theory nobody would ever know about it, but I've just told them where to look now, haven't I? Silly me. You'll like this, I promise you. How about this? Oh look, they think of everything. Look, not only is there an extended load carrying area for putting loads on and then sliding them in if they're awkward, or even for putting your kids on if you're having a picnic or the kids are trying to get off their muddy boots or something like that. But attention to detail, I think we call that. Look, we didn't know that was there. But I really do worry. This only takes 75 kilos, and that means that a fat bastard like me couldn't sit on it. So I'm not sure that that's a great idea, and it costs, all adds to the cost. And talking of cost, the new 5 Series BMW Touring goes on sale in April. it will cost of the order of £25,000, about £25,300 for the 2-litre version. But get this, it goes up to about £45,000 for the 4-litre 540i. To put that in context, you could have this car plus a very nice 3 Series saloon. I'll come to that. Probably a bottom of the range 5 Series saloon for the price of just one 540i Touring. I can't really see, although the 540 is better equipped in every department virtually, I can't see how a car that shares the same body shell as another one can be £19,000-20,000 more expensive. But it has to be said that with that 540i you get a lot for your money. You also get a lot for your money with the bottom of the range 520, I should add. In fact, BMW reckon that there's only a sort of £1,900-2,000 price premium over the saloon version. So that's what you're paying for the equivalent estate, or as they prefer to call it, touring. Now the other one. And this one. Would you pay £25,350 for this car?
It doesn't like it. What is it? We're joined by an old friend of the programme, Chris Willows from BMW GB. Chris, who's going to buy this sort of car? Well, judging by the people who previously bought the 5 Series Touring, they're executive managers of companies. They're a lot of them company owners. Almost 50% of people who actually own or have a serious stake in a company. And of course, family people. I mean, this is a more flexible saloon car, in effect, rather than an estate. That's the way we put it across, and that's why the previous one was bought. So it's family people, but family people who have a degree of success or can control their own lifestyles.
And a degree of money in the bank as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And talk us through the range. It starts with the 520i, which I think comes in at about 25,350, something like that.
That's right.
And what other versions are there?
Well, the 2-litre one, 520, comes in May. It's first of all the 528 and the 525 TDS diesel. The 520 is the range starter, if you like, at the price you've mentioned, 25,350. That will be followed by the 523, which confusingly has a 2.5 litre engine in it, the 528, which is this car here, then the 525 TDS, that's the diesel intercooled turbocharged version, and topping out the range is a large 4.4 litre 8-cylinder engine car, the 540i Touring.
Now that comes in from memory at about 45 grand.
Yeah, just under.
Huge price difference. I mean, you're getting the same body shell, but you're paying £20,000 more for the car. Now, all right, you're getting a bigger engine, but it seems an awful huge price disparity.
You're getting more than double the size of engine, Mike, for it.
But does that account for 20 grand?
Of course, part of it is the engine. It's an 8-cylinder engine. It's produced in very much smaller quantities, and the engine is much more expensive to produce. But it's not just the engine, it's the equipment that you get with the car as well. That car comes as standard with air conditioning and all sorts of creature comforts, if you like, that make it the sort of car you would expect at £45,000.
But it is true to say you could actually buy a bottom of the range 5 Series Touring and a 1.9 litre Z3 for the same price as one top of the range Touring.
I can see the direction you're coming from, Mike.
I think it's worth having a closer look at this rear tailgate because it's this soft touch device. There's no leverage goes on here, just a gentle touch. You may have heard that. And it lifts up. And similarly, when you close it, there's no slamming, just a gentle drop down of the hatch and it kind of shuts electronically. This extended load carrying area, I'm not quite so sure about. It extends about 2 foot. It will take, like I said, 75 kilos, which means that somebody like me, it's probably a little bit too heavy for. But the idea is that if you've got a couple of kids, maybe we'll find a couple of kids later to demonstrate the point. You can have them sitting here, maybe peeling off their muddy boots or, I don't know, having a picnic watching the point to point or something like that. But like I said, this is not an estate car, this is a touring. And it doesn't do grubby things like go down to the municipal tip. It carries hampers and Harrods bags and golf clubs and that sort of thing. In fact, for that test drive, we've grabbed a 528i SE, which stands for Special Equipment. And you would think, wouldn't you, from that badging, that this car, and particularly its price tag of £32,505, would be a car that would be very well equipped, as indeed it is. But in fact, the version we're in right now actually has, believe it or not, £10,500 worth of extras on top of that. So we're in a sort of £43,000 version. What do all those extras include? Well, for starters, you've got these what are called comfort memory seats, which means that you can set the position every time you climb back in the car after somebody else has driven it. The seat will go back to the position that personally favours you. There's also the onboard navigation system, which is probably the most advanced of its type. That's another £4,000, something of that order. We've got metallic paint, one or two other things, £10,500 worth of extras on this particular car. I mean, my advice for people would be go for the basic car. Ironically, we don't have a sunroof. funnily enough. But you know, I think a sunroof is not a bad idea. This car's got a very expensive CD system. Avoid CDs, just stick with the cassette player and a radio, and really ask yourself if you're going to get anything back on all those extras you're investing in. You know, it's a bit like having an expensive kitchen fitted in the house. When you come to sell that house, you ain't going to get the money back on what you spent on that fitted kitchen. And the same rule applies with cars, really. Spend several £1,000s on extras. When you come to sell the car, you won't get a great deal more for it. Certainly you won't get your money back. I mean, as you'd expect from a quality car like a BMW, driving this is the absolute, well, for me I can't think of too many cars I'd rather be driving cross country. You remember a few weeks ago we looked at the saloon version, and I was raving then about its driving qualities, its refinement, I don't know if you can get a sense of that acceleration, but you know, absolutely nothing lacking in performance terms. And in terms of comfort and feeling at one with the car, I mean, you just cannot go wrong. I don't quite know how BMW do it, but you kind of snuggle in, you get behind the wheel, and you instantly feel confident. Immediately, this sort of vehicle inspires you and makes you want to drive. You know, it's a corny old thing to say. They call it the ultimate driving machine. And you know, in terms of saloon cars and estate cars, touring cars, then really I think they have very, very few competitors, if any at all. The days when Mercedes gave BMW a run for their money, I think, are over.